Welcome back to Count Me In, and thanks for joining the conversation about all things affecting the accounting and finance world. I'm Adam Larson, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mitch Rochon, and today we have a very interesting episode to share with you. For this week's conversation, Mitch, you had the opportunity to speak with the managing partner of CronosNow, Richard Starkey.
Yes, I did. Richard Starkey is what he refers to as a serial entrepreneur since his teenage years. His passion for business and education came across very clearly, and we were able to talk about how important accounting and finance skills are to starting and running a business. He is also a great proponent for lifelong learning and shares some valuable insight into how professionals can learn and develop through their careers. I enjoyed the conversation and learned a great deal from Richard, and I hope you do too. So Richard, please tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up as the managing partner at CronosNow.
I started being an entrepreneur quite early in life. In my late teens, I started up a small kind of publication and was actually riding horses as a profession. I was a show jumper and realized I needed to make some money. So, started a couple of small businesses, nothing too sophisticated. And as I kind of got on in my career, I realized I needed a strong kind of finance background. So I studied accounting part-time while working and running some small businesses. And I did my accounting degree. And during that process, I wandered off and became an operations manager for a large logistics firm, got into corporate finance, and then really felt the shortfall of my technical finance knowledge. So then continued with the rest of my chartered accountancy qualification, all part-time in my late 20s, actually. And once I kind of finished the qualification, I went back and did my internship and articles in my late 20s. I landed up in academics, teaching financial reporting as my real teaching subject. And from that, I grew into, let's call it a bit of an expert in financial reporting and later in corporate finance and deal structuring for mergers and acquisitions. Not a deal maker, more a technical accounting and tax structuring kind of guy. And through that period, I really just ran with academics, sometimes more academics, less consulting, sometimes more consulting and less academics. But through that process, a couple of years ago, we did an education corporate finance deal where we brought and structured a couple of education businesses around the world. And by accident, one of those deals didn't go so well, and I landed up kind of holding the reins as temporary CEO for what was supposed to be for an interim period, and landed up actually loving it and moved from technical accounting finance guy into CEO of an education business for a good 3.5, 4 years, and had to learn all the skills around strategy, building out larger systems, marketing. And in that process, I had some wins, some losses, but I really fell in love with the idea of automating and developing processes from the front end marketing all the way to the back end accounting. And last year, after some personal health issues in our family, we sold the business to take some time out. And during the end of last year, I realized I enjoyed the entrepreneur space, not just as an entrepreneur, but in helping entrepreneurs. And that's where CronosNow was born. And CronosNow services and looks after my own entrepreneurial and my wife's entrepreneurial activities from a systems, accounting, and finance perspective. But also we act as an accounting firm that we like to does more than accounting. And it's been a good, first year. And we're learning and helping small to medium entrepreneurs by doing initially their accounting in the most automated and efficient way possible, but then building that out into the rest of their systems and processes.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that story. For someone who, doesn't come from a necessarily traditional accounting background, but you certainly put in the time with your studies and a chartered accountant, how do you believe that piece of your background has helped you in these executive roles that you assumed and then started?
Such a good question. The reality is my accounting, finance, and specifically the auditing side has helped me understand the the rules of the business game, specifically around business process and risk. It has been a challenge getting out of just the process and risk mindset when you start moving into a CEO and entrepreneur state. But understanding how businesses can build off of a good process is everything. That's the foundation, right? And quite honestly, the auditing training has been just exceptional in supplying me with that skill set.
Well, as you came from academia, right, and you kind of combined all of this accounting background and learned kind of on the go, how would you recommend, or how do you kind of see the needs of accounting education and accounting preparation changing based on, where today's business world is, as you previously mentioned, automation?
Accounting and systems and computers and AI. I think the level of understanding of computer systems and even programming for accountants is going to need to increase drastically over the next 5 to 10 years. That's the one skill set I miss all the time. I've always got to rely on a programmer even to do basic integrations and system checking.
Now, my next question is kind of what's next, right? I mean, you are in academia, you talk about educating students, educating entrepreneurs, assisting accountants today. Once you have that education, you have your qualifications, how do you progress through your career? What are the next steps?
So I've mentored quite a few of my students, as well as my previous financial managers, etc., on this kind of journey. And I see two broad forks in the road at some point. I went through both of them, so they don't have to be one choice forever. It can actually be you make one choice now, and 5 or 10 years down the line, you make a different choice. But I see the fork of one move career-wise being in becoming a specialist. So you become a US GAAP or IFRS financial reporting specialist, a tax specialist, a systems specialist, an IT auditor. That specialism is, you become the smartest person in the room on a small area of knowledge, and you get paid very high fees to do that work. Very rewarding. I made a lot more money doing that than I ever have as an entrepreneur, but hopefully that'll change. The other fork in the road is to become a manager and a leader, right? And those are two different things, and something which we're not trained very well in as accountants. So, and that often starts as we start managing a finance team. You stop being the person doing all the accounting work, and you start managing an audit team or a team of accountants. And managing a team requires us to learn about leadership. And that can ultimately also evolve into moving out of the finance function. I still believe accountants and finance professionals make the best chief operating officers, the best CEOs. But we've got to shift and really learn how to grow human talent. And that requires you to become a coach. It's so much more than just managing. Managing is just lay out deadlines and tasks and crack the whip until it happens. Whereas leading is understanding people. How do you grow them? How do you get the most from them? And how do you do that sustainably? That's been the area I've been really short on. And with that move into the CEO entrepreneur side, I've also realized that as accountants, we're very focused on the no, you can't. This is the risk. We're good at identifying risk. Whereas we actually have the best opportunity, because we understand the rules and the risks, to look for opportunity. So that mind shift to look at risk not as a no, but as an opportunity. How do we mitigate that risk? How do we overcome that risk? And I found that skill set needs a marketing skill set. So I'm working more and more with young accountants who qualify, and this is their first journey in being an entrepreneur. They want to get out there and start their own business. So they want to jump straight into the leadership, straight into the innovating strategy space. And whether it's a small business, opening a restaurant, or starting a tech company with some friends, the reality is we need to learn how to do marketing. And the cool thing about marketing these days is it's data-driven. It's all actually reporting. There's inputs, there's processes. It's a science that I'm still learning. I'm still a little confused. It still feels like dark magic at times. But it actually suits our skill set very well now. It's not about these abstract branding and imagery and perception issues anymore. There's real data, especially with the online marketing world. And I think accountants, once they get into that skill set and learn some of the basics, can actually excel because we understand process, inputs, controls, process, output. We trained on that. So if you're doing accounting and you want to get into your own business as quickly as possible, well, start today. Start a little blog, see if you can drive traffic to it. Start a little drop shipping store, find a product, repackage the coffee and sell it. Doesn't have to be your forever, but you can start learning how to do marketing today while you're still studying or while you're in your accounting role.
I'm curious now, with all of that knowledge and those recommendations, how have you seen technology really play a role in your businesses, particularly? What kind of efficiencies have you realized at CronosNow thanks to automation?
So I'm going to start with the boring kind of numbers, outputs, the amount of time spent driving down costs. Actually, in my previous business, senior education, we had 300 staff across 5 countries, and in that space, we took 3 years, and we took a business that had 4, 5, 6 different systems and created an efficient, automated, and interlinked system, which our very smart IT guys that were partners in the business called Qubit, where we literally reduced workload on processing a student's registration, ongoing operations, their submissions, their interactions, their invoicing, their collections, all of that process that was previously done manually. I would say we reduced the human interaction on a student's life cycle, a student being a client, by 60, 70%. And that's just the one-for-one. Where you look at, there's additional workload created because every time there's a human capturing an invoice where you've already got the information already captured on the CRM or on the operating system. So you're duplicating data capturing, you're also making errors. So although we reduced it 60, 70% just on a normal workflow, the time requirements by humans, we actually reduced it by more because that doesn't take into account the amount of time fixing, reviewing, fixing again, human errors. So that is my personal internal experience. CronosNow is currently working on a company here in South Africa that's a manufacturing organization. And we have literally, in a staff of 30 people, of which 6 of them are admin staff, by setting up one centralized database that drives all the systems. We've got rid of all the manual sales orders, invoices, quotes. We've automated the customer order that goes to a production order that automates the invoice. The accounting system that's used, the Xero, pulls the bank statements automatically and matches the customer receipts against the invoices, which feeds back to the production orders and the shipping documents. All of those steps used to be manual. So lots of errors, lots of time wasted. We've reduced the requirement by, the company's requirement by 3 or 4 admin clerks already. Now, the company's great. It hasn't retrenched. It's kept those people to reallocate them to other resources as we grow the business. The softer side has been the managing people. With automation, we have real-time data. We can have clear sets of accountability and KPIs for people. And that's not just a crack the whip, but it also identifies where people need training, where processes need to be improved so that people are more effective and efficient. And managers have the proper tools to identify shortfalls for either training or disciplinary action. So the benefits are so much beyond just what you can quantify in a spreadsheet. And all of that also then leads to what we're seeing specifically with CronosNow clients now, is that the small business who's run by the founder, these are businesses that you can picture are less than 5 million turnover, less than 40 staff. That business owner is the controls in the business, right? They live in that business. They check all the bank statements every day. They have to sit on the production team. By giving them proper data that they can rely on the controls and the data that's being fed back to them in real time, as well as error reporting, so they don't have to check everything. The system will throw out errors and inform them proactively. Suddenly, those founders start getting freedom from their business.
For those who are maybe just starting in their careers, maybe progressing through their careers, or want to start their own business, what advice do you have for these accounting and finance professionals in today's industry with this automation available to them and the skills and competencies needed? How would you recommend they progress into their futures?
I think the first thing is that they need to read, non-finance stuff. They need to read from good authors in order to figure out what they value. Long gone are the days where you went and worked for a company for 40 years and you were happy with the paycheck, right? And the stability. Stability is a bit of a falsity these days, right? You need to be adaptable. You need to be happy in what you do. So what I found, most of my accounting staff, most of my accounting students, and it's a big generalization, so forgive me in advance, but most of them really benefit from reading, as a starting point, Carol Dweck's book called Mindset. So accountants are generally drawn into the accounting profession because they're A-type personalities and it just fits well, right? And that is changing, granted, but it's still a big number of people who are drawn to the accounting profession. And that fixed versus growth mindset is quite important for all of us as finance professionals to understand and to start working towards a growth mindset. And with that being said, I think the thing is to learn. So let's face it, accounting, you land up in some type of an internship or apprenticeship that you feel a bit bitter about sometimes. You feel you're underpaid, overworked. The work isn't as exciting as you would think it might be. But in accounting, you're exposed to all these systems and processes and other managers or the business's innermost finance details, which other people don't get exposed to. So you can learn in that process from the business managers, from the entrepreneurs that are running the businesses that you do the finances for. So get down and read, try and figure out what it is you want post your qualification. And that, I find, comes from looking at your own principles and your own values. Are you wanting to be a specialist? Are you wanting to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to, grow into a big corporate? Do you want to go into a small business where you're your own boss? And again, read. So the books and people I suggest are Carol Dweck, as I said. I'm a big fan of Adam Grant. His book Give and Take was quite fundamental to me, as well as his new book Originals on entrepreneurs, which is a great study saying entrepreneurs actually are more successful if they're not cowboys. They're very risk-averse people, but they manage risk really well in their personal lives. And then Ray Dalio, once you get into a management position, the Ray Dalio book on principles was really good. So I think read, get exposed and listen and learn to as many businesses, entrepreneurs, or people that you want to be like. Identify the people who you see you would like to become more like. Align that with your principles and values and see how you can serve and give into that space. Because the world is much bigger than spreadsheets and financial statements. That's your starting point. Great starting point. Most of the rest of the world is confused by those. But it's a starting point to your career, not the ending point.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.